Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at Rivian. Rivian cuts 1% of its workforce in a second round of layoff this year. A lot of people see this as a panic for Rivian. I don't think so. I think this is calculated. I think Rivian is optimizing for efficiency. Right now, they do need to save money. They do need to be quite efficient in building their vehicles. And I think that's the purpose. I think this layoff was always planned for Rivian, and I think it was inevitable if I'm being completely honest. Rivian reported on Wednesday that it cut about 1% of its workforce as the company reduces costs amidst a broader slowdown in EV demands. Shares of Rivian up as much as 3.4% on Wednesday. We've got a statement from the Rivian company, and I quote, "This was a very difficult decision, but a necessary one to support our goals to be gross margin positive by the end of the year." The maker of the R1S SUV and the R1T pickup trucks in an email to Ruta, adding that the cuts were focused on staff supporting the business. This move follows a 10% layoff at Rivian in February when the company disappointed investors with a lower than expected 2024 production forecast. Rivian had 16,790 employees across North America and Europe, according to its annual reports. That's a lot of employees, by the way. For a company the size of Rivian, that's a lot of employees. Reducing costs is critical for Rivian as high interest rates to rein in inflation have hurt consumer demand, and EVs are typically more expensive than their gas-powered counterparts, which is true, which is why we're trying to bring the Rivians to market as soon as possible. The Rivian R2, the Rivian R3, and R3X. The company last month introduced its smaller, less expensive R2 SUV and said it would start producing at the US factory instead of planned new factory. This is to hasten deliveries in the first half of 2026 and save the company more than $2 billion. Shares of the Rivian company have hit a record low on Tuesday, and that's when I started buying. And by the way, this is not financial advice, this is just my personal opinion. I've never seen Rivian this cheap, and I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't mind the shares continuing to be this cheap for a long time to come because I want an opportunity to continue buying cheap shares, especially cheap shares of Rivian. Companies that bet billions of dollars on an electric car future are now cutting prices to stoke demand and reducing costs to limit cash burns. Now, this is true. Tesla started a price war. Now, every other company is joining in on this price war because it is genuinely difficult now to find EV demand. 3, 4, 5 years ago, there wasn't this insane, lack of EV demand. Now, the demand of EVs are actually falling. And I believe this is for a few reasons. One, they're still hybrids. But keep in mind as well that not just Tesla, BYD, and Polestar and Rivian are American EVs. You've got other companies making EV. Volvo, you've got BMW, you've got Mercedes, you've got Audi, you've got Volkswagen. You've got so much companies that are making electric vehicles. So it's not just that there's a slow in demand, there's also a lot of options. Now that you're buying an electric vehicle, there's so much options. What about the Hyundai Ioniq 5? There is so much options for consumers, it is almost overwhelming. There used to be a low supply of electric vehicles. I remember back in 2012, 2013, 2014, even 2015, trying to find a good electric vehicle was like Tesla. That's it. At the time, who was doing better? There was no one doing better than Tesla. So it was quite easy to make that decision, in fact. And it allowed Tesla to build up this advantage, a huge advantage. But a lot of people thought that the demand for EVs will continue growing. Why would EV demand continue to grow if petrol cars are still being sold? And for a lot of people buying new cars, these are not people who are planning on keeping their cars for 10, 20 years. They probably want to change car in 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years at the most. You're looking at a highly advanced world where people have a lot of options. People want to trade in their old vehicle and get a new one after a couple of years. People want to have options. So that's one of the main reasons why the demand is not growing. Why would it grow? And not to mention, electric cars, they tend to be more expensive than the petrol cars. So a lot of people still buy petrol cars because it's the norm. Take the UK, for instance. A lot of people who want to learn how to drive are learning how to drive manual cars. Most of the cars, they tend to be manual cars in the UK. Especially first-time affordable cars, they tend to be manual. So for a lot of people, it makes sense to learn how to drive a manual. Now, why spend that much money learning how to drive a manual if you're just going to drive an automatic electric vehicle? That's a waste of money. So a lot of people are already kind of committed to buying a manual vehicle. And there are not many manual vehicles that are electric. Very few, if any. So everyone is feeling this hurt in the electric vehicle market. But in other news, Rivian's new software update will help you to avoid all the broken EV chargers. The company is gathering data on EV chargers for a new scoring system that it said can help customers navigate the treacherous waters. Rivian pushing new software that will give customers a better insight into EV chargers to visit. Rivian is pushing a new software that will give customers a better choice and better insight into EV chargers to visit and the ones to avoid. EV charging reliability remains a serious sore spot for a lot of owners of plug-in hybrid vehicles, leaving the company selling the cars scrambling to boost their confidence. Rivian's solution is to use their vehicle fleet to gather data about broken chargers, which then get downgraded in the company's software algorithm. Rivian head of engineer gave a statement to The Verge, and I quote, "Our North Star is charging, and trip planning in EV should just work. You should not have to think about it." End quote. So I think this would be rather a positive update for Rivian as well, especially beneficial to Rivian, because it impacts on the company negatively. If people who own a Rivian, they drive up to a Rivian charge station, a lot of the chargers are probably broken or they're temporary, unavailable. Being able to provide this information to customers before they get to their charging station might be a very useful thing. And I guarantee you, something like this, if it works well, if it makes consumers happy, if it brings relief to their lifestyle and mind, this will become a more common feature, a more popular feature amongst electric vehicles and electric vehicles manufacturers. Now, The Verge is saying that they had the chance to test out Rivian's new software update during a road trip in the R1S SUV. Inputting a destination brought up dozens of charges on the vehicle's navigation, each of which displayed a letter grade. An A grade is a site that the charger was in good working condition, while obviously the F grade speaks for itself. So surprisingly, there's multiple chargers rated F, and apparently there is one of the A's, so I'm guessing these were probably infrequent or irregular. So the new ranking system is determined by a host of data collected by Rivian consumers or customers. Each vehicle is connected and instantly sending data back to the company's headquarters, which then get processed to remove noise that is not essential to the decision-making algorithm. So this is a very interesting piece of software, of course. I can see how this would be very beneficial to Rivian customers, because people won't just waste their time going to a charging station with no guarantees. Mileage is precious, and the anxiety of just having an electric vehicle where there's no guarantee that you'll be able to charge it at a charging station is unrealistic for a lot of people. Our charging infrastructure really sucks, and that's worldwide. That's another reason for slowing demands in electric vehicles. You can't be surprised at these things when we don't have the infrastructure. These vehicles are not affordable for the everyday person. There are so much barriers to get in electric vehicles. What if something happens to the battery, out of the warranty? Who's covering the cost? Is it the insurance? Do insurance want to cover the cost of your battery? There's a lot to electric vehicles, and it's more for people who can afford it. And it's not a cheap thing to own. An electric vehicle is not a cheap thing to own. So listen, this is where I'll end this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to see more. Leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you in our next video. Peace.